Welcome back to the sister show of the Public Relations Podcast. This is a show called quite literally Getting a Job in PR, and it's all about developing a career in strategic comms and public relations. My name is Richard Mitson, and if we've not met before in person or in another podcast, I had a career in PR, in European politics, and I've also seen both sides as a news editor and news broadcaster in the UK, and now I also do some teaching of PR and comms related subjects at a university. This show is actually a sort of research project designed to help you and the industry. In this show, we talk to agencies, in-house comms managers, and comms recruiters around the world to find out what they actually need from people and what you need to do to get into and be successful at PR and strategic comms today, wherever you are in the world. There seems to be this sort of big gap between what people think is needed and what's actually needed. And we're trying to close that gap to save you time when applying and help agencies only hear from the people that they'd want to work with too. So this is not about quick hacks to get a job, which is generally the way to get hired and fired quickly. It's about what really works. So if you want to learn more about the project and how you can get involved as perhaps a case study or as an agency or comms employer, head to the website at gettingajobinpr.com. Well, I am absolutely delighted to be joined in this episode by Andrew Healy from Walter & Wool, based in New York in the United States. And if you've been listening to the Public Relations Podcast before this, then you already know him. But if not, for anyone just joining us on this podcast, Andrew, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Andrew, founder and one of the partners at Walter & Wool. We're a 13-year-old independent B2B PR and marketing agency with a specialization in the financial service and professional services.
Fantastic. Andrew, the first question I like to ask people in this show is that if you were starting again, knowing what you know now, how would you get into the industry?
So, I keep seeing these horror stories on LinkedIn. I keep hearing horror stories when I speak to people that they're applying for jobs online, in some cases 500 jobs, which just feels so crushing. And they're not getting it. And in many cases, AI is doing an initial vet, and they're finding out 3 minutes later that they're not getting it, or they're finding it out in the middle of the night, which makes it clear a human's not looking at it. That's obviously the way that the world is going towards. It's an efficiency move for brands. When I got into the industry in 2004, I got it through my personal network. A very, very close friend from college. His parents were neighbors with the owners of a PR firm who just so happened over dinner to mention they needed a young college graduate. That's how I got my foot in the door. The way that I would encourage people now, graduating college, young folks, apply for the jobs online, absolutely go for it. But every now and then someone will reach out to me and it's clearly researched. It's not just a copy and paste. It's not just an AI. And they'll just very graciously ask if I would mind sparing 15 minutes to chat with them just to offer them some high level advice. They're not looking for an interview. They're not asking for anything other than just sort of a quick conversation. It happens so rarely that when it does, it really makes that person stand out. They took the initiative. They're doing some research. I think it's a much more time-consuming approach. It's like a sniper approach. It's one by one. You're being methodical. You're spending time online. So the upfront expense is definitely there in terms of time spent. But I'm speaking to people at other independent boutique agencies, larger shops like Edelman. People are bypassing this sort of AI slop online job posting nightmare. Sometimes they're going around the HR coach where they're just reaching out to a principal, just saying, "Hey, here's who I am. I graduated this college, and we have these, maybe common folks or we grew up in the same town. Find some sort of way to get in." And they'll just say, "Hey, look, if you wouldn't mind sparing 15 minutes, I'd love to pick your brain, ask a couple questions, and see." And it shows that they're curious. It shows that they're hardworking. It shows that they're proactive. I would say for young folks out of college, they tend to overestimate what is expected of them. They don't have any experience yet, so we're not expecting them to come in day one and go into the starting lineup. We're looking essentially for personality hires, for characteristics, for qualities. We're looking for folks who are curious, folks who are proactive, who are collaborative, who like working in a team environment, who are empathetic, who like to solve problems. If we can find someone who kind of, checks all of those boxes, and they have an interest in what we do in our industry, we can mentor them in terms of financial PR, B2B tech, all of that in a couple of months. It's really hard though to train that motivation and to train that type of person. So I find when those people do reach out, I respond almost right away because I remember being in their shoes at one point. And if we don't have an opportunity for them, every week, agency owner friends that will reach out or people will post and they're looking for someone. I'll say, "Hey, check this." I mean, we placed so many people that I've never met before, but I spoke to on Zoom during COVID. which is great. It just revolves
There's so many things in
going
here,
up.
Andrew. We're gonna have to unpack some of this because I mean, first of all, so in other words, what you would do is you would say, look, I could apply for hundreds of jobs, but what I actually need to do is to speak to someone, isn't it? It's the old way. It's about networking. It's about showing yourself. It's about talking to a human. So I mean, what is the kind of person that when you're talking to them, what have they done that makes them stand out? Because there's lots of people out there that might just simply reach out because it's like, well, that might be a way of getting in. Who are the people that stand out to you?
Honestly, all they have to do is just a tiny little bit of research to personalize the note. It's as obvious as can be when I get a note that's just copied and pasted, and I could be anybody at any agency and nothing there. And look, I don't need to feel special. I'm not looking for people to, to praise us, but we're a much different agency than say Edelman, or a much different agency than say Burson. So reaching out to me and the head of HR or something at one of those shops, it should be a different note. When I say, look for some type of common ground, whether it's, if they went to the same college as me, or we have similar, I don't know, grew up in the same area, or
Yeah, it's
something
something
like
that
that.
resonates personally, isn't it? Outside of the work aspect, yeah, it clicks with us as humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I would say, given how obvious it is when people are just using AI, and it's just it's not flattering. Personalize it. Take a little bit of just take a look at the website. Take a look at a recent blog. It doesn't need to be much. But we had someone at in the middle of December, and I posted a blog, and they reached out and said, "Hey, I'm graduating from Syracuse University. I'm interested in financial communications. I just read your blog on GEO. I'm studying this. I'm writing my thesis paper on it. I would love to chat if you had 10 to
Yeah.
15 minutes." I'd say there's a really good chance that that person's not writing their thesis paper on GEO. They just saw my blog and they wanted to kind of just personalize it, but it
Yes.
worked. Versus just, hi, hiring manager, if we could spare 15
Mm.
minutes. So doing that, taking a little bit of research and time, doing your homework, which you should do before any interview, I think is key. And then in certain instances, we've made job offers that have come for that, but more often than not, I hear folks either through the PRSA, or other networking groups that I'm in, will say, "Hey, I need to hire someone for this type of role." And I'll say, "Well, I just spoke to this young woman. I'll make an email intro, or hey, here's her LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out and name drop me." And I find out eventually that they got that job, and they'll reach out, and this is essentially a stranger. But again, the next generation of our
Mm.
industry, we want to make sure we continue to
Yeah.
grow and flourish and do all that. You have to kind of pay it forward. And all of us, even though I've been in the space for, I don't know, over 20 years now. It's so long that I can't do the math. We were all in that space where we were begging for jobs, we were begging for anything. And again, the nightmare stories of you apply for 500 jobs and you don't get one. It's dispiriting. I mean, it really sort of takes the wind out of your sails. But rather than applying for 150 jobs in a single day, take 8 hours and reach out to 50 people. It will take you that long to find them, to personalize the note, to make sure it's something that's appropriate. Send it out, because if you send it out to 50 people, you're going to get at least 15 or 20 who will respond. And now you're going to be 15, 20 conversations with people who own agencies, who run specific groups within the agencies. It's a way to kind of like get your resume like at the top of the top
It's
of the
interesting
order.
though, isn't it? Is that you would have thought that people would be, people like yourself would be just flooded all day long with non-stop. And it's interesting that you're not getting that. It's like, well, why are, are people not thinking to do this, or are people just not prepared to, or are people maybe intimidated by it? I mean, what do you think's going on?
I mean, it's probably all of that. I think they were definitely intimidated. Um, I think they might assume that I'm getting 50 notes a day, and so why bother even taking a chance when when the opposite
Yeah.
is the case? I think I don't say intimidated. They're scared. I know that there are some folks who were a little bit more social. They thrive a little bit more in those
Mm.
type of environments. It's you tell someone who's graduating college to reach out to 50 strangers. It's
Mm.
daunting, even for someone who's very gregarious and very out there. I mean, particularly for sort of next generation, where some of the communication style isn't catered towards cold calling and things like that. So I think there's lots of hurdles towards it. And I do get lots of notes, but like I said, it's so obvious when someone did not personalize it,
Yeah.
or they just copied and pasted this to 100 people. Because at that point, you might as well just apply to the AI job, and because you're just sort of doing a save as. There's nothing there.
Yes, it's still got to be that unique
Right?
pitch. This interesting because that comes into
Yeah.
this.
Oh, in many ways, it's like pitching. It's like pitching a
Yeah.
reporter. You do your homework. You understand who they are, what they write, who their audience is, what their beat is. giving them a source or a story that sort of fits with that and that could add value to
Yeah.
their audience. There's a lot that goes into a successful pitch before you even press send on
Yeah,
an
someone said
email.
that the other
So
day,
in many
which is that
cases,
if you
it's the
can
same.
pitch to me for a job, you can pitch to a reporter. Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the character because you brought that point up. I mean, what sort of person, because particularly with someone who's young coming out of college, at the end of the day, they don't have the 20 years of experience that you've got and the confidence that comes with that. So how can someone say to themselves, look, maybe I'm feeling a bit nervous, but I could still actually be good for this job? What sort of characteristics do you think makes a good person in PR and strategic comms?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the biggest one, particularly in sort of agencies, but definitely in-house, you have to be collaborative. Not everyone is born to work in a team. Some people are more sort of, they like to fly solo. They perform better that way. That's totally fine. I'm surprised how many people get into the industry and struggle to collaborate and be empathetic and engage with teammates. I don't know if the colleges aren't preparing for them. I don't know if they've never had the role for that before. I used to work at a ton of restaurants. There's not a lot of parallels between the restaurant hospitality world and PR, but you're forced to deal with customers. You're forced to deal with customers who might not be the happiest at all times. You've got teammates and colleagues who might be great. You have teammates and colleagues who might be terrible. Like you learn to kind of go with the flow, and you read this, you read the room, and you read all of these things. There's a quality to that even if you lack the experience, because again, if you graduate college, no agency or PR person is expecting them to day one be pitching the media, to know exactly how to manage a client's crisis. All of that they'll learn on the job. For us, we're looking for someone who is curious, asks a lot of questions, thrives in a collaborative environment, enjoys working with clients. You'd be surprised how many people in this industry can't stand dealing with clients. It's a customer facing industry. I don't understand why people get into it if they don't know that. But people who do thrive in trying to problem solve and help people, I think those are the ones that really sort of kind of
Just
stand
the
out.
collaborative
And
bit thing. I mean, it's interesting. You said, are they being trained in? What could be done, or what could they put themselves into to learn those skills, to experience it? I mean, there's an element of sort of saying, well, if you're not doing it already, maybe you're not into it. But I mean, if you were designing a training course, how would that include an element on collaboration that would help you?
so I'll tell you this: there was an analysis done a couple of years ago. I forget exactly where it was, but they were basically it was a leadership coach. They were trying to understand the common threads and commonalities in successful leaders across multiple industries, and they were taking a look at education, background, privilege, wealth, all the things that just sort of go into a geography, all of these things. And the number one common thread that ended up having a high sort of leaning and weight towards success was they had a job in high school or they had a job in college. It doesn't matter what the job is. It just matters that their first corporate job or their first job out of college was not their first time working in an environment. Because I used to work at pizza places, restaurants. I made a ton of dumb mistakes that when I look back on, I'm so embarrassed about. But guess what? It's better to make that mistake working at a bagel shop on your college campus when you're 20 years old than when you're working for your first job at an agency after school. So if you learn about the value of money, you learn about how to deal with there are so many things that sort of pop up there, but we look for that and we can tell, I love hiring people who worked in restaurants, who worked in coffee shops, because they dealt in very high stress environments with high demanding clients. And they came out on the other side. And if you can deal with an angry coffee mob at 8 a.m. in Midtown Manhattan, you can deal with a
Yeah,
client
I
who's
bet.
looking for a
Yeah,
media
yeah, yeah.
report.
I mean, one of the things that I say is that it's also really important to actually kind of try the job. Whether you're promoting a club, a university club, or a society, or something you're interested in, is actually try and do this job, even if you're not doing it perfectly, because you're going to learn so much just by trying. And I feel that more of that sort of practical experience would be useful for people. Now, instead of just going, oh well, I've done my degree, I'll just apply for a job. It's actually go out there and do this stuff while you're waiting.
Yeah, I mean, look, getting an internship definitely
Mm,
helps. The perfect example for us is we hire an intern that's going to their senior year of college. It's a good experience. We like them, they like us, and then we get them a job when they graduate the following May. I mean, it's the ultimate win-win where we're getting someone who proved that they have the qualities to succeed, and it's great. I remember it's great that in January, February of their senior year of college, they get a job offer. They know that they're
mm,
graduating with a starting salary. So I think that's sort of a big part, but also I mean, it's interesting. For as much as the next generation lacks some of the analog background that we all had, that sort of like almost door-to-door salesman, which would like terrify someone coming out of school today, we also lack what they have in the sense of they've been growing themselves online for most of their
Mm-hmm.
life. They're very comfortable with storytelling. They're very comfortable with narratives. They understand certain metrics that work. They understand certain things that make certain stories connect. It's not apples to apples promoting a brand versus promoting themselves, but they're coming into the landscape. I'm trying to tell young folks, like, don't be so intimidated. There's so much you don't know, but there's a lot that you can teach us. There's a lot that you can bring, which has always been the case. So, they're not at as much of a disadvantage as maybe they think they are. But I get it. You're nervous as hell. Done a ton of interviews. Nothing's gone anywhere. It's fun to have some of those conversations. But I always tell everyone, like, calm down. We're just having
Yeah.
a conversation. We're just going to talk about certain things. Obviously the basics you have to get. You have to be on time for the interview. You have to look somewhat presentable. You'd be shocked some of the behavior we get from
Come on,
kids in
Andrew. Come
college,
on. I
and
had one of
we're
these with a guest the other day who the person said, "Oh, I'm delayed by the traffic. Can you come and meet me halfway between where I live and where your office is at Starbucks?" Go on, give us a horror
yeah,
story.
that's oh, the horror story. Okay, well, somebody was vaping on a job interview. I was completely blown away from that. Vape all you want, but when he pulled out the pen, my brain stopped working for about five
Yes.
seconds, and then the cloud was still there. And I actually was happy that it happened because I couldn't wait to tell everybody about it. Um, you'd be surprised how many people miss it, and whether they give you a legitimate excuse or
Doesn't
not.
matter.
It
No.
doesn't really matter. I've had folks who clearly just woke
Yeah.
up. And when I mean, I woke up within the past
Yeah.
60
Yeah.
seconds
Yeah.
because you could tell by the outfit they have on, you could tell by their hair, and you
Yeah.
could tell just, again, we all sound funny in the first minute that
Yes.
we're awake. So it's that. For the most part, people are prepared and people are ready. If anything, they're so nervous. Um, it's every now and then someone will show up with a suit and tie for a Zoom interview, and I appreciate the professionalism. Um, but we're just trying to have a
Yeah.
conversation.
Let's talk about once you've actually got someone in the building. Who are the people that after a year you go, God, I did a good job there? I mean, who are those people? What have they done in that first year? Not necessarily in terms of the actual practical side, but what have they shown? What have they demonstrated? What skills have they actually shown to you in that time?
I mean, for us, the biggest thing we always tell everyone is to make yourself indispensable. Make yourself the person on the team that if they were to leave for whatever reason, their colleagues and their clients would be furious
Mm.
because you're the person that's always raising their hands, staying late, going above and beyond, really, really sort of adding value and doing that. Not everyone does that, but I mean, every now and then someone leaves and we have to tell clients and we can see it and they're like, they really get crushed and that person truly established themselves as indispensable. And in the early days, that's not the result of driving media coverage or coming up with good strategic recommendation. They lack that experience. It takes a while to get there. I think in the early days, it's someone who's enjoyable to work with, who's very collaborative, who doesn't mind taking on assignments, who asks a lot of questions, and who seems genuinely
Mm.
interested in the client, in their business, in achieving their goals and trying to help out. I mean, it's having that sort of positive, curious mindset, I think for the first year is the biggest thing because like I said, we can take someone and train them the art of PR, the art of media relations, and how to craft a pitch, and GEO, and certain parts of our tech stack that we're utilizing, and
Mm.
all of these things. Reporting, we'll train them that. But if they don't have the right
Yeah, the
mindset,
mindset.
and if they're not looking to actually grow within the organization, that's where it doesn't work out. But I think if everyone makes the high level goal of I want to be the person that this agency can't live without, that's a good place to be in because all of a sudden that's where promotions come into place. That's where salary increases, bonuses. And if we have people and we have tons of them that we can't live without, we need to make sure we take care of them.
What about when it doesn't go well? What are the red flags that you go, nah, that person is not going to survive? One of the things I mentioned at the beginning, and this was something that came out of a comment that was made to me, was that some people will look for hacks to get into jobs. Now, I mean, it can mean anything hacks, but to get into the job, and then once they get in there, they can't actually do anything. They're no use. What are the red flags, do you think, in that sense?
Trying to have like a diplomatic
Yes.
way to talk about it. To be honest, I mean it's a lack of hustle, and you can almost
Mhm.
identify that immediately. It's maybe being a little bit late. It's missing deadlines. It's not asking a lot of questions. It's looking bored. I mean, there's no sort of like one thing that we see and we go, oh, that's a red flag. It's almost just a general lack of engagement. Where you almost want to say to them, and sometimes we do, like, like, you don't have to be here.
Yes. Yeah.
If this doesn't bring you joy, look, when companies describe themselves as being a family, I want to like throw myself out the window. But we do want this to be an environment where people actually like to
Yes.
come to. Like the best thing I can share, we had someone on our team who said that this was the first place where she didn't get Sunday scaries,
Yes.
where, Sunday night she wasn't getting anxiety about the next morning. And it was like one of the nicest
Yes.
compliments anyone could ever kind of
Yeah.
pay us. But there are people who, we've been very fortunate with our hires and very fortunate with our team over the years. But there are some folks, it's clear the pace that we're at, and maybe that's agency life sort of being surprising. They're not able to match that, and more importantly, they don't want to. And
Yeah.
so
It's not them. Yeah.
another thing is, you don't need to stay in your first job forever. I don't like people hopping too much. That's a little bit of a bad precedent, but the old school way of staying in your first job for 5 years, absolutely not. If it doesn't work out, the sooner both sides realize it, the better. And you just want to make sure you learn, as an agency owner, I want to make sure we learn from those mistakes. But also, if we hire someone and they don't love it here, I want them to learn as well, so that they go to a place that they do like.
Yeah, it helps everyone, doesn't
That's
it?
important.
Let's talk AI. We talked about this on the public relations podcast earlier as well. What sort of skills are you looking for from people now with AI?
I mean, the fact that it's so new, we're open to anything. We want to make sure that everyone here is using AI as essentially like a co-pilot. Use it for research, use it for helping to craft content. Don't put 100% of your faith into it. There needs to be a human editor at the end of everything. AI hallucinates, AI gets things wrong, and that's incredibly embarrassing, particularly for, clients that we work with in the B2B tech space or in the financial services space. But what we're finding, particularly for young talent coming out of college, they're very, very comfortable with AI. They've been using it a ton, particularly for research. And so much of what we do for clients and for prospects, if we're doing research, we're trying to figure out new ways to sort of tell their stories and sort of almost using that as sort of like a virtual teammate to kind of bounce ideas off of. So we're looking for folks to come to educate us, teach us, tell us what's worked for them. And then we put in place the guardrails to make sure that everything is sort of compliant from A to Z. The clients are being protected. But we're utilizing, we're demoing new AI products every 2 to 3 weeks. And so if we have this conversation in 3 months from now, it'll be much different.
That's changing so fast. Yeah.
But look, there's that overall comfort level with all things tech. And it's not to say, hey, hire someone out of college and make them your head of AI strategy. That's not the way to go. But like we were talking about before, this is a generation that might lack some of the analog, traditions that, older generations have. But they're coming out, storytelling is very much a part of their DNA. So that naturally sort of like gels into in terms of what we're doing. AI has a part of that tech conversation.
One final question for you, Andrew, because we really could talk about this for hours as well. If education as a whole, and I mean from the whole span of it, could teach something that would help you with the people coming out of education applying for jobs, what would that one thing be that you would love them to teach more?
In terms of what I would love to see colleges teach their students
Yeah,
more?
absolutely. It could be anything. Could be anything. Could be interpersonal skills, could be technical skills, could be anything. What one thing would you love to see them come out with more of, generally?
Honestly, I would tell them to get the hell out of the classroom, get into your local community, find a business, do something, get more sort of like real life experience. And I know a lot of colleges will do this, and there's businesses that will sort of work. They'll essentially offer pro bono services, but speak to a business owner, get an understanding of what his or her business is in the industry and the challenges that they face and what they're looking for. I think some of the sort of tabletop exercises that colleges do is great on paper, but it's very much lacks that sort of like tactical real story. Sit down with someone who runs a business, hear what their growth problems are and the hurdles are, and come up with strategies together to try to get around it, then try to actually execute it, speak to a report, do some of these things, create content. So, I think there's limitations to how much real life experience you can get while you're at college. You're still on the educational side of the fence. But I think the more that professors can get their kids out there, the better. And I think for the most part, business owners our clients are great to work with, but you need to sort of actually chat with them versus having sort of, coming up with a hypothetical scenario, supporting Acme Co's development. It's make it more real. And then also have a conversation with the business owner, get those initial nerves out. engage with the reporter, get those nerves out. The more you do it, it's like any other thing else. It's a muscle. The more you do it, the more reps you get in, the better you'll be. And so I think, I think that's a big thing I'd love to see.
Andrew, this has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing so much. It really is appreciated today.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. If people want to find out more about you, if they didn't hear the public relations podcast earlier, how can they find out more about Water and Wall and yourself?
Website, waterandwall.com. Find us on LinkedIn. We're all there. We've got a lot of great content up. Reach out. Love to chat.
Fantastic. So next week on Getting a Job in PR, we are going to be heading, if I'm correct, we're going to be heading to the UK this time. A in-house PR person from quite a major firm is going to be talking to us on that, find out more about what it's like working in-house and what you might need to do to get ready for that. That's it for Getting a Job in PR this week. I hope you found that useful. Don't forget you can reach out to me as well, Richard Midson, Midson, on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear what you're up to, how you're applying for things, how that's all going too. Keep me up to date. I will speak to you very soon.